series. Today we're talking with John Spence, a fantastic friend. I think we've known each other for many, many years. I can't even count them up. More than 10, right?
More than 10,
Yeah.
less than 20.
Right, so somewhere in there. But John is a noted author and speaker, trains, is really sought after for high-level development and training with large organizations and small. He's recently written a book that I ordered overnight called Awesomely Simple from Amazon. And we're here to talk about the book, but more importantly, we're here to talk to the passionate entrepreneurs out there who follow Scale Passion and John's work about the book and some of the lessons in it. And what I really love about the book, and I was able to read it over the weekend, was that it's tactical and practical. And we talk a lot about that on the Scale Passion site. There's a lot of books out there that are just platitudes. And so I love the fact that there's worksheets in here. There's tactical things you can go to awesomelysimple.com and download. So let's just jump right into it, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Robert. How are you?
Very, very good. Why don't we start with you giving us a little bit of your background, and then we'll just slide into, why'd you write the book? What was really the motivation behind it?
Cool. Very, very fast background. You and I chatted about it earlier. Grad of University of Florida. Go Gators. Got picked up right out of college to go to work for the Rockefellers in one of their foundations. 3 years out of college, I was named CEO of that foundation. So I took over a company doing scientific projects in 20 countries around the world when I was 26.
Wow.
In way over my head, which is one of the core drivers of the book. Is the business was big, it was complex, it was challenging, and I had to figure out how to run it as fast as I could. And one of the ways I did that is Mr. Rockefeller had a right-hand man who would give me a book every Monday morning, and on Friday I'd have to make a book report. So I became a voracious reader and trying to gather as much information as I could, really just to save myself and make sure that I could run the company okay. Stayed there for about 7 years. Then I went to work for one of the top strategic sales training and strategic planning consulting firms in the country as the president for about a year and a half. And then I went independent. I've been independent for 14 years now. I spend about 50% of my time doing high-level training in the areas of leadership development, high-performance teams, strategic thinking, customer service, things like that for a number of Fortune 100 clients like Microsoft, GE, IBM, Qualcomm. Then the other 50% of the time I'm doing speeches, training for smaller companies, startups, smaller businesses, and writing books and articles.
Excellent.
And this book, my first book I wrote on leadership, which was self-published, I didn't really have any plans to write a book. And one of my clients called and said, we'd like to order 500 copies of your leadership book for our next conference. And I said, I don't have a leadership book. And they went, write one. So, they just said, we'll write it and we'll buy it. So I wrote it and they bought 500 copies. And before I knew it, we'd sold about 25,000 copies.
Wow. Congratulations.
Well, thanks. And I didn't know it, but on a self-published book, that's astronomical. Most people who self-publish a book, if they sell 1,000 copies, they're happy. I was completely clueless. I didn't know that 25,000 was a good number. But here's really what happened is after about 15 years of reading, studying, learning, climbing around in hundreds of companies, I finally got to the point where I felt like I had an opinion. That I had looked at enough companies, I'd done enough research, I'd studied enough, I'd been thoughtful enough that I'd gotten to the point where I thought I had some ideas worth sharing. So this book comes from a place of really wanting to help people and from realizing that most people have not been afforded the opportunity I have of spending a decade and a half doing nothing but studying business and working in hundreds of businesses, learning what they do right, learning what they do wrong.
Right. That's excellent. And, I know that you work with a lot, like myself, we both have a background with larger companies and smaller. And why don't we start there before we dive into each of the points? What are some of the lessons that you're gleaming from the larger companies that you're able to apply to the small? Not everything applies, but what are some of the key crossover, or what are some of the ones that just absolutely do not? Talk a little bit about the differences between the large and the small.
Well, the large and the small, let's talk about some of the similarities. The major issues that will destroy or allow a large company to be successful are the same for a small company. Lots and lots of open, honest, robust communication, clear vision, a lot of stuff that we covered in the book. So I see the similarities around what allows a company to be successful very closely aligned between small and large companies at a foundational level. The difference I see is that bigger companies can afford bigger mistakes. They can throw more people at a problem, they can throw more money at a problem, and if they make a mistake that costs them, I don't know, a couple of $100 million, big deal. Whereas a small business doesn't have that luxury. They have to be incredibly focused, very agile, very nimble, and understand how to really add value in the marketplace, because they don't have the luxury of throwing $1,000,000 at something or losing it. So I see that it's even more essential for a small business to understand the fundamentals exceedingly well and do them with discipline, because they can't afford the luxury of the lack of discipline some large companies have. And that's been one of the most overwhelming things that I've seen in large companies is, well, I'll give you a quick example. I teach a class at Wharton every year on strategic thinking. And every year I always ask the executives, what percentage of the time do companies that have a good plan, that understand how to differentiate themselves in the marketplace, that know what it takes to be successful, what percentage of the time do they actually effectively execute the plan? And the answer I always get is 10 to 15% of the time.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. So a small business cannot afford to only be effective in execution 10 to 15% of the time. They will be out of business. Whereas a larger business can carry some of that slack for a few years before it catches up with them.
Right. That's great. Let's jump into the book. I'm going to read right from the overview here. Your 6 real keys and core principles: vivid vision, best people, robust communication, sense of urgency, disciplined execution, and extreme customer focus. All excellent. Let's take them one at a time. How about we start with vivid vision? Let's talk a little bit about having a great vivid vision.
Well, I come at this a little bit different than most other authors. Most other authors will talk, and you and I chatted about this earlier. The 6 things that I put here are really what could be considered truisms. I mean, there's nothing revolutionary or shockingly new here that's going to completely change the way you look at business. But what I'm telling you is, please, please, please do these things effectively. So when I look at vivid vision, I know that companies understand they need a vision. Number one, it's surprising to me how few of them actually have a good, clear, easy to understand and easy to implement vision. And then number two, and here's the big issue, is it's not well communicated. In company after company I go to, I'll go 1 or 2 levels down and ask the folks, what's the vision, mission, values of this organization? And very, very rarely do they all tell me the same thing. I was on a consulting engagement earlier this week with a company that only had a staff of 7 people, and all 7 of them had a completely different view of what the vision of the company was. Wow. And if I didn't see that every week, it would be funny, but it's not funny when I see company after company where, the vision isn't clearly defined, and then B, and the most important part is, it's not well communicated across the entire organization, relentlessly, consistently, clearly, to where everybody knows this is why we're here, this is what we come to work for, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and here's where we're going to be in 3 to 5 years.
Right. Yeah. And what are some of the keys that you throw out for building a great vision? What are some of the tactical things that a company should be thinking about?
Make it, well, here's what I would say, and this is the way I wrote in the book. This is not a contest to see who gets an A+ for writing the best haiku.
Right.
I like the way Guy Kawasaki. I like the way Guy Kawasaki says it. Make it a mantra. So tactically, don't get hung up on all the verbiage and the flowery language. Make it something just really easy to understand that resonates with your people. If you can put measurements on it, I love that. If you can make it quantifiable so people know where you're going, I'm all great with that. But if you can't do it, that's fine with me too. I've got one client, what their vision statement was, build a great team, deliver fantastic service, and look for opportunities for growth, was basically what their vision stuff. That took them from 50 million to 250 million, because everybody said every day, get the best people on our team, deliver awesome products and services, look for growth opportunities. It kept everybody focused on those 3 key essentials. It tripled the size